Ari, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week, we're on episode 248, which is also the last episode of 2024, and we are asking, what changes are coming to the podcast in 2025? Before we start, if you enjoy the show, consider checking out our coffee page. You can follow the page for free as we have plenty of goodies for everyone. If you're feeling generous, a one-off donation will get you access to a few more treats, or you could become a Merry Writer for just $2 a month. For this, you would get access to all the items in our shop, including exclusive goodies and access to bonus episodes. And it'll all help support our lovely little podcast. But of course, if that's not your style and you still enjoy the show, please subscribe wherever you're listening if you're not already, and consider dropping us a like if you're watching on YouTube. We thought a good ending to 2024 would be to discuss all the changes that are coming to the podcast in 2025. But before we get into that, let me talk about a couple of major changes from 2024. If you've been listening to our episodes for the last few months, you'll have noticed we moved from Patreon over to Ko-fi. We have lots planned for our coffee page, including more bonuses and possibly more tiers eventually. Maybe, we'll see. We are also considering doing some mini series episodes for our members where we discuss a simple topic over several bonus episodes. Think of it like an extra podcast just for our Merry Writers, but on a lesser scale. We aren't sure when this will all be sorted, as our calendar for the podcast is pretty full right now, but these are our plans for the future. So if that interests you and you want to see what special goodies you can get over on our coffee page, then you can just simply head over to Ko-fi, that's ko-fi.com/The Merry Writer Podcast. On a side note, we reached over 10,000 downloads on our Podbean page in 2024. That is a huge milestone, and we really appreciate each and every one of you listening to the episodes, downloading them on Podbean, or wherever you're listening. All the follows, the subscriptions, the comments, everything. Thank you so, so much.
It always surprised me that we managed that. I mean, first of all, our podcast is still small, and we're fine with that. We're okay with that. But we always assumed that YouTube would do better for us, and yet Podbean just kind of blew up. Now, I know obviously Podbean is connected to all the other platforms, and we are being listened to on some weird platforms we've never heard of. But it's such a nice thing. It was a really nice thing to see that 10,000 pop up, and we had a little badge and everything. Okay, anyway, let's move on to the next part, which really bad segue. We'll just scream segue. Okay, so we've talked about 2024. Let's talk about 2025. What's coming up in the new year? We're actually introducing a new guest format to the show. If you've listened to any of the early episodes, you'll know we had like topic-based things, and we're stopping that, and we're going in a different direction. We don't know if or when we'll be bringing back the format of topics. They were quite useful, and we had all of our really great guests on. And we have ideas for new topics with guests. However, we really did want to try something different. So we will now be hosting our guests as an author interview style, meaning we'll interview our guests about their writing work and work within the writing industry and their books. So it gets a bit more in depth about them and their processes. At this time, 2025 guest slots are by invitation only, so we get used to this new format. But don't worry, we have a wonderful lineup of guests for the upcoming year, including new faces and old friends that we've had on the show before. Eventually, the guest invite will probably open up back to our Google form, but we'll announce that at another time. So, hopefully people aren't upset that they can't automatically join us, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
We will. We just need to get used to this new format first because we're making a lot of changes, and we want to make sure that it works well for us and also for our guests. And hopefully you guys, as our listeners, will appreciate it and enjoy this new style. But speaking of guests, we are also going to be setting up our recording sessions differently beginning in 2025. Now, if you've been a guest on the show, then you'll know we have been using a Google form setup for you to fill out. In addition to that, we've started using Calendly. And I'm going to butcher that name so many times because it just does not roll off the tongue. But anyway, Calendly will allow our guests to book a recording session that works best for all of us. The best part, which is why we went with it, is that it automatically sets your time zone. So there will hopefully be no more confusion with time zones or other schedule conflicts. Because again, if you've been on the show before, you'll know that Rachel doesn't do math correctly. and time zones screw her up. So this way, it'll just automatically convert to your time zone whenever you look at the calendar, and you'll be able to, it'll just be easier for all of us, hopefully. But also, since Calendly is new to us, we'll see how it goes. If it doesn't work out, then we'll go back to how we did things before. So please be patient with us as we work out this new guest style and set up these new methods.
Yeah, I think the main issue, as well as the time zones, because obviously I'm in one time zone, Rachel's in another, and sometimes if we had a guest, and sometimes multiple guests at the same time, we could have like 5 separate time zones. That is very difficult to arrange, I can tell you that now.
We
And
did. I forgot about that. We had 3 guests on at once, and 2 of them were in the same time zone, but different. That we, between the 5 of us, we had 4 different time zones, I think.
Yeah,
That was, it was
that's
a good
hard.
episode,
It was,
but it's
it
hard
was...
to figure out and configure everybody's schedules.
I think also it's like, because we mostly record on a Wednesday, sometimes a Tuesday. I mean, Rachel and I do our own episodes on Tuesdays, and then Wednesdays we record guest episodes. So the Calendly will be mostly set up with very specific time frames that we can do. This does not mean that if you don't fit within that, there's no chance. It just means we're trying to be a bit more structured. We have a lot on our plate with other things, and while we try and be flexible, we can't always be as flexible as we wanted to be because it eats into other things. So yeah, it's I mean, obviously if we invite you on and you still want to do it and we're struggling to get you into the time zone we've given, the time we've given, we'll try and work something out, but fingers crossed that Calendly solves a lot of our problems.
Right, exactly. We do try our best to be accommodating, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way because of, again, as Ari said, we have other responsibilities outside of the podcast. So, we're trying our best to streamline it in a simple manner that works well for everybody, and hopefully it works out. We'll see how it goes.
It also should hopefully reduce how many emails we send, because we do have like a set of emails that we send to people to like welcome them to the podcast and check their dates and da. And we're hoping that will kind of cut a lot of this out and make it easier for everybody. But hey, things don't often work well for us, so we'll see. And if you are a guest on the podcast, we thought we'd do something a little bit silly and a little bit fun, and we will be sending you a little badge for you to place somewhere on your website, and the link to your episode that you can connect to it. So if someone sees it, they can click it and it'll send them directly to the episode that you were on as a guest. It's just something a little fun we thought we'd give our guests as a bit of a thank you for being on the show, for putting up with us and our nonsense. With that said, obviously, if you've already been on the show in the past 5 years, send us an email and we are happy to send you your little badge to put on it. Literally a little graphic that I have to create yet. I haven't done it at recording of this. But we'll sort something and yeah, put that on there and show everybody that you've been on the Mary Writer podcast.
Yeah, and you can add it to social media, and hopefully it'll just, I don't know. It's just a fun little thing that we meant to do a while ago and then we just never did. So I mean, that's kind of the MO with the My Writer podcast. We have many ideas and then we don't stick with them or we don't start them. But hey, that's a good segue into the biggest change of all. Well, actually, it's not even really a change. But hey, we saved the best for last. In 2025, the podcast is turning 5 years old, which is completely crazy. I don't think we ever really thought that it was going to last this long. And I gotta, give a huge shout out to Ari for having this idea in the first place, because I know for a fact, if I started a podcast on my own, it certainly wouldn't have lasted this long. It probably wouldn't have even made it to a year. And we just work so well together and we keep each other accountable and we split everything 50-50. And we've been so fortunate not to have any issues with each other or with the podcast. And Ari, it has been an absolute pleasure. It really has. And I love you so much. Not to turn this into a corn fest, but here we are anyway. But still crazy. 5 years. That's a long time for the two of us to be meeting each other on a weekly basis. And we're not sick of each other yet.
That is crazy, actually. Yeah, I didn't even think of it on that sense. It's like, yeah, 5 years of the podcast, not 5 years of spending a lot of time with each other, coming up with new episodes, creating graphics, discussing issues, finding guests, talking to guests who find us. Yeah, and oh, you are so sweet. It's like making me all feel like, oh, But honestly, yeah, I liked the idea of the podcast. I broached it with you because I didn't want to do it on my own. I can't function something like this on my own. No, God, no. So yeah, I dragged you on board, and you were stupid enough to say yes. So yeah, no, I did not think we'd manage 5 years. We did it in the pandemic, so it was just going to be like a pandemic thing, and then we carried on.
I know. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that because I was just about to say for anybody who doesn't know, which I think we've explained this in the podcast before, but the podcast actually started planning in September of 2019. So technically, we've already reached the 5 year, like Ari and I have reached our 5 year anniversary, but we didn't release the podcast until the end of March, early April. So, the podcast officially turns 5, I think like March 25th, I believe, which is when we released the trailer, and April 1st is when the first episode officially released. So I think in 2025, I think it's technically like March 26th, and April 2nd is when those Wednesdays fall. So that's when we'll have those episodes. But it matches up. It's fine. We're going to be doing a couple of special episodes around that time, and we'll also be doing something special on our coffee page exclusively for our Merry Writers, but we will also, of course, have something special for everyone for free to the public. And because we wanted to do something special for our anniversary, we do have a few ideas of things we would like to do, but of course, we want to hear from you guys because you guys are the reason that the podcast is still going. For some reason, we have over 10,000 downloads on Podbean, and you still like the sounds of our voices. So we wanted to get your opinion on what you want to see for our 5 year anniversary. So we've added a poll onto our coffee page, and everyone can vote. We've made it free. We've made it available for the public. So you don't have to join the page if you want to contribute to what you want to see for the 5th anniversary. But of course, if you do want to join the coffee page, you're more than welcome to. If you have a spare $2, you're more than welcome. But don't feel like you have to join the coffee page. You can still participate.
And if you're not joining us, that's fine, but you can get free stuff in the shop, as we mentioned at the beginning, and we keep mentioning. We always give free stuff, even if you're not supporting us financially, because we like to give free stuff, obviously. And am I right in thinking that we have other milestones in 2025? It's not just a 5 year.
Yes. In 2 weeks, which is also next year, we're going to be reaching 250 episodes. And by the end of the year, we're going to be reaching 300 episodes. So we're probably going to be doing something special for those as well, or at least the 300 one. I don't know if we talked about the 250.
It might just be another one of those ones we used to do, usually in the end of the year, where it's like, would you rather? Was it would you rather?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We haven't done one of those in a
Yeah,
long time.
we could throw that in as a 250 episode.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. We can. Well, we'll have fun. We'll think of something. So look forward to that. 2 different milestones, 250 episodes, and then 300 episodes. This could be famous last words. Something might happen to the podcast and we'll be done in like mid 2025. That's not going to happen. Don't worry. I'm not jinxing it.
We'll fall out, stop talking to each other. The podcast will just die a death.
I know, really. But also, the other thing is 2025 has 53 Wednesdays. So you guys actually get an extra episode for next year. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but if it is, you're welcome. You get 53 episodes instead of 52. How amazing is that?
I feel like that extra one is mine, which means I'm going to have more editing to do, which is not great.
That's right, because every year since we started the podcast, I mean, as you guys know, Ari and I, we alternate hosting the podcast. I usually have the even numbered episodes. Ari has the odd numbered episodes. And every year, the first episode of the year always lands on an odd number, and the final episode of the year always lands on an even number. But with that extra Wednesday for the next couple of years, Ari will have the last episode of the year, and I'll have the beginning of the year. So, well, that'll technically start in 2026, I guess. But still, yeah, you'll have the final episode of 2025.
That's a lot of pressure. Lots of pressure.
That's fine. We don't usually do anything too fancy for the final episode anyway.
It used to be bloopers
in the past. Yeah. There's a lot of things that we kind of just stopped. We stopped doing the Would You Rather. We haven't done bloopers in a while.
Is it not
because bring some of those back?
We don't make as many mistakes.
That's true. Yeah, we've gotten better actually, which is kind of amazing. It only took us what, 5
Yeah.
years? Almost 5 years.
I'd like to think we're better at it now, you know. I wouldn't even like to think about how bad they were at the beginning compared to the episodes now.
I mean, that'll be on the poll if you want us to do a react to our first few episodes.
I can't. I don't even think I listened to them after editing. I never listened to them since because it was cringy. Because everything at the beginning is cringy because it just felt awful. Yeah, I don't vote for that.
And it probably, oh yeah, it'll be a trip. It'll be a trip, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what people want to see for the 5th anniversary, and also it'll just be fun to celebrate the 5th anniversary anyway. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm proud of us for sticking with it for so long, and just allowing the Merry Writer podcast to go on this long. I realized that was a lot to unpack in this final episode of 2024, but we just wanted to give you guys a heads up and a huge thank you for helping us reach over 10,000 downloads on Podbean, and also just helping us have a smooth transition over from Patreon to Coffee. And again, if you want to join us on Coffee, or even just follow the page for free so that you can get those public freebies. But yeah, I hope you guys are looking forward to the new guest format on the show. Please bear with us while we figure out that new format, because it's us. I am super excited to see what 2025 is going to bring the podcast, and also just everybody as a whole, for everybody's writing journeys, everybody's lives, because seriously, the new year is right around the corner. And I mean, today is Christmas Day. So I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday, whatever you celebrate. But before we leave, if you want to learn more about us and the podcast and those opportunities to be a guest on the show, even though they're technically invite only for the time being, please check out our Podbean website at themerrywriterpodcast.podbean.com. So we're going to turn it over to you guys for the last time for 2024. Which change are you most excited for? And are there any topics you would like us to cover throughout the podcast next year? Let us know your answers in the comments so we can chat about it. And remember, we release a new episode every Wednesday. Next week and next year, we're discussing colors. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to leave you with that. We're talking about colors next week. To ensure you don't miss it, because I know you're curious now, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out. As always, thank you guys for listening to the Merry Writer podcast. Thank you for another wonderful podcasting year. We will see you guys next week, and we hope you have a happy new year. This podcast is brought to you by Stuffed Bookshelves. Our TBR piles are huge. The music, titled Inspired, is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.